Hey, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Tech Conversations. As always, I am your host, Guillermo, and as always, I am not a financial expert nor licensed professional. If you plan on investing in the stock market, please consult with one first and invest at your own risk. So, I hope you're having a great day today. It is October 28th, and the stock market is down quite a bit today. Hopefully, some of you guys have seen some great gains today, but as always, let me know in the comment section below how you guys are doing today. As you can see, SPY right now is at around $327.40, down $10.80 today, or about 3.18%. So very, very red day in the stock market today. This is why I sold most of my stocks weeks ago and am sitting on a lot of cash right now because the market is getting very volatile, especially as we get closer to elections. So just be careful out there in the market right now. Now, in today's video, I want to talk about a question that I get all the time. Why isn't my order being filled? Someone will go buy an option or sell an option, but their order just won't go through. And so I'm going to be talking about the bid, the ask, the bid-ask spread, and how all these different things influence whether or not your order gets filled. So before I get into that, all I ask is that you guys hit the like button down below and subscribe, guys. It really helps out my channel. And it really helps these videos become more widespread on YouTube so that hopefully more people can watch them, learn more about investing in the stock market, and hopefully become better. So let's go over to Microsoft stock, ticker symbol MSFT. And I want to use Microsoft because it's been trading sideways for the most part today. So I want a stock that's not going to be changing a lot when it comes to their options, so I can demonstrate this. So let's say you're bullish on Microsoft. The one thing you can do when you're bullish is buy a call option. And so let's say we wanted to buy this call right here at a 205 strike price. So how much would we pay? And so you can get a general idea of about how much you could potentially pay by looking at the price. And so for this option right here, I would pay around $2.33 a share to buy this right now. But remember, there's 100 shares in each contract, so you need to multiply this by 100. So this right now would cost me about $231. And so let's go ahead and click on this. And I'm sure you guys have all seen this panel if you've ever bought or sold options before. But remember, you can choose how many contracts you want. Let's say we just want one contract right now. And so this limit price section is what I want to talk about today. And so one thing that you might have noticed, or a couple things, right, is first of all, these two numbers here, kind of a range that Robinhood is giving you, but also the fact that this number is pre-filled, right? And we don't actually have to go with what Robinhood is pre-filling this with. We can put our own price in there. But let's actually talk about this and understand how this influences your limit or your order being filled. And so let's start with this range right here. So this number on the lower range is called the bid. Generally speaking, that's the most that a buyer is willing to buy this contract for, $2.26. And on the other end, on the upper end, we have our ask, which is the least that a seller is willing to sell this contract for. And then the difference between the two, right, which right now is about 0.0, looks like 0.07, is the bid-ask spread. That's what is known as the bid-ask spread. And then if you've ever noticed, Robinhood tends to pre-fill this with basically the midpoint of the bid and ask, which sometimes is called the mid-price, but generally speaking, it's called the mark. And Robinhood actually has this here. If you click on the option, the mark, it's basically the midpoint between the bid and the ask. Now, a couple of other things that you can notice on here is that this is actually going to show you how many contracts are available right now at a particular bid and a particular ask. So for example, right here, right now there are 29 contracts at 229 for this ask. For bid right now, there's 223. There's 8 contracts. Okay, so that's something that just make sure you're aware of. But again, mark is going to be the halfway midpoint between the bid and the ask. Again, generally speaking, what Robinhood defaults this for, and here's why. If you want this contract to be filled absolutely as fast as possible, since we're buying this, we're buying it from a seller. And remember, the seller is going to be willing to sell this to us for this higher range here, 233. So if I wanted this to be filled as quickly as possible, I would put in here this upper limit, right? So 239 right now, that's what I would put in here. And this would get filled immediately because that's how much the seller is selling this for. Now, when you're buying a car or buying a house as the buyer, usually you try to buy it for cheaper than what the seller is asking for. And so, generally speaking, that's why Robinhood has this midpoint because you're supposed to kind of negotiate with the seller, right? And be like, hey, I'll buy it from you, but I want it a little bit cheaper. And usually, the seller will meet you halfway, which again, this is what Robinhood is putting right here, the midpoint between the bid and the ask. So, if you leave this will probably be filled. And so when it comes to the bid ask spread, what we want tighter bid ask spreads. We don't want them to be too far apart. And so one thing that makes bid asks pretty tight and not too wide is high volume. Okay, so always be checking the volume on options. You want volume to be pretty high. Okay, so that the bid ask stays relatively tight. And so I'll make a different video where I explain volume and open interest, but just keep that in mind. Now, again, another reason you want the bid ask to be very tight is that so it doesn't cost you a lot to get out of this option, right? Because right now, as you can see, since the bid ask is only 0.04, if I were to buy this option and then I wanted to get out of it right away by selling it, I'm only going to potentially mostly lose, at most, lose whatever the bid ask spread is, right? Because I could potentially be buying this for this upper end, and when I sell it, I'm potentially selling it at the lower end. So I'm only going to lose however wide that bid ask spread is. If the bid ask spread is very, very wide, you could potentially lose a lot of money just by buying and selling, right away. Okay, so it's going to be costly to get out if the bid ask spread is very, very wide. And so, again, if you're in the situation and your order can't get filled when you're buying an option, usually you're going to have to go towards the upper end, what the seller is willing to sell you at. If you're selling an option, then you're going to have to go at the other end, the bid, which is what the buyer is willing to sell that to you for. So let's take a look here now at where people get in trouble. So people are going to get in trouble when the bid ask spread is very, very wide. And I actually found this website which actually kind of alerts some of these stocks that have very, very large spreads. And so here's one of them, ESS. So let's go take a look at that stock and let's take a look at how you could potentially get in a lot of trouble if you were buying or selling options with the stock. So let's go over to options. And let's say I wanted to buy an option here. Let's say I'm bullish and I want to buy a call. So let's say I wanted to buy this call right here. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to press continue and I'm going to do I want one contract. Now look at this bid ask spread, guys. It is literally almost $5 apart. And in fact, if I were to go to review order, Robinhood's actually going to give me a warning here, right? They're going to be like, "Hey, are you sure about this?" So as you can see, wide bid ask spread. This option has a $4.90 bid ask spread. You may want to enter your own limit price to increase the likelihood of your order getting filled. And so again, right now, the most a buyer is willing to pay for this is 510. But the most a seller is willing to sell you this for is 10. Okay, now let's click on this option. Take a look at volume. It's zero, guys. What did I say? If you want tighter bid asks, which is what you should always want, you're going to want volume to be pretty high. And of course, volume is zero. So then that makes the bid ask spread be very, very wide. And so again, this is very dangerous because if you were to buy it, all right, if you were to buy this, first of all, you're probably not going to you're not going to be able to buy it right now for 760. Even if there was some volume, you're not going to be able to buy it for 760 because the seller, they're asking for $10. They're not going to want to lose 240. Okay, that's a lot of money. So you'd probably, if you're going to buy this, have to go a little bit higher to meet them. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people are running into when they ask me this question. They're in an option with huge, wide bid-ask spreads, and they're trying to, use this middle point, or maybe they even try to go lower and try to pay less for it. That's never going to get filled If you really wanted this to get filled, you'd have to go a little bit closer or a lot more closer to the ask, right? Maybe like try $9, right? But again, even that might be pretty hard since the bid ask spread here is pretty wide. So just keep that in mind, guys. Make sure you're always taking a look at this bid ask spread on here because, again, the wider it is, the more costly it's going to be to get out. And, depending on where you're placing your limit price at, it's going to be very hard to get filled because, again, if I wanted to do only try to pay like 5 or 6, let's say, it's probably not going to get filled. Okay, because right now the seller is saying, hey, I'll sell this to you for $10 and you're trying to buy it for 6. That's a loss of $400. Again, generally speaking, that's probably not gonna go through. So again, that's probably why your orders aren't being filled. Again, there are other things that influence that, like volume and open interest, which I will talk about in a different video. But again, that's what the bid, the ask, and the bid ask spread are. If any of you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below, guys. Remember to join the Discord. Link to it is in the description below. And if any of you plan on using Robinhood in the future, feel free to use my referral link, which is in the description below. If you sign up using my referral link, both you and I will receive one free stock, which is basically free money for both of us. So let's help each other out, guys. And as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time.